Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with the Last Huntsman channel here, and today we're just going to make a fun video here, but we're going to compare and contrast the Ruger PC9 carbine versus the KelTec Sub 2000 9mm carbine. Now, note to all you FUDs out there too, and oath breakers and traitors and all that good stuff and commies, these are only 10-round magazines, so don't piss your pants or anything like that. Let's have some fun. All right, so here we have the Ruger PC9 carbine and the KelTec Sub 2000. Now both of these are 16-inch 9mm carbines. We have them both configured to take Glock magazines. This one I think is set up for the Glock 19s. This one will take any Glock magazine. Well, they all will, exception for this cannot go any shorter than the Glock 19 magazine. So let's just kind of discuss both of these. Both of these are kind of marketed as like a short, light, handy kind of backpacker, kind of go bag type of 9mm carbine. And while I think they both kind of serve that role very well, you could already see one thing right off the bat is how much shorter the KelTec Sub 2000 is over the Ruger PC9. The Ruger PC9, I have it set up in the backpacker stock configuration. The KelTec obviously is set up with just as is with the Gen 2 style. But let's kind of check out how these things break down. Alright, first of all, I got the Ruger PC9 here. It's obviously in the backpacker stock. Now, we'll double check it here. Empty, all that good stuff. Now, to break down the Ruger, it's almost like a 1022. Actually, if you're familiar with the Ruger 1022, the Ruger PC9 is basically just a big 1022, but you can lock the bolt back just like a 1022. Has a little button up underneath here that you push forward, twist the barrel around, the whole barrel comes off, and with this backpacker stock, it actually has a slot that it fits into. The whole carbine fits together like this. However, I will say the KelTec Sub 2000 is a lot simpler and quicker. We'll double check it. It's good to go. The KelTec Sub 2000, the trigger guard itself actually just depresses down and the whole rifle itself just folds in. Now let's check these side by side. Alright, so we have both of these rifles broken down in their kind of travel, backpacker type of configuration. And as you can see, the KelTec is a good considerable 6 inches roughly shorter than the Ruger PC9. So that's going to be one major advantage of the KelTec right off the bat. And I will also say the weight of the KelTec is significantly less than the Ruger PC9. However, I think as we go into some other things, I think we're going to find that the Ruger has some other advantages over the KelTec. Kind of some advantages I could think offhand is, I could tell a significant recoil reduction on the Ruger. Part of that might be the weight. I also think there's a lot more aftermarket support than the KelTec. The KelTec is, other than some carbo internal parts, the KelTec is kind of as you get it. This is them side by side again. Now, I'm doing part of this video in the garage because it's so windy and such outside. Alright, so we got the Ruger PC9 and the KelTec Sub 2000 out here. We're just going to do, it's not going to be any official accuracy test, but we're going to just kind of get some basic groups. Now, neither of these are perfectly zeroed or anything like that too. They're both pretty new out of the factory, but we'll just test them out. We're going for a 10-shot group. Alright, I got Kenny out here. He's going to try 10 shots out of his Sub 2000. Alright, so this is at about 50 yards with both the Ruger PC9 group and the KelTec Sub 2000 group. Now, mind you, both of these I do not really think are particularly accurate rifles, and I'm using just cheap Russian steel case stuff, and I think my twin brother is using pretty cheap stuff too. But, you know, none of these are going to be match rifles. However, I will say, I think out of the box, the Ruger kind of had a better group. Alright, so I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the Ruger PC9. Now, there is a lot of different variances on this. There's like a pistol version, one with a full-length handguard on it, the basic stock version. The model that I have here is the backpacker model. I opted for this model because I thought it was one of the lighter ones, and something else that kind of intrigued me later that I found out about it is it actually has a compartment. Kind of hard to actuate with one hand, but you could actually fit a spare magazine in the stock itself. That's a really cool feature on the Ruger PC9. Now, this is the Magpul backpacker stock. I got it with this stock on there, which is really neat. Now, something else to take note on too is the Ruger PC9 has kind of a little bit different iron sights on it. Has kind of a rear ghost ring sight and kind of just your typical leaf style front sight. I actually like this setup. I even set up a red dot on here at one point, but the red dot kind of sits up a little higher, so it was kind of hard to co-witness through the iron sights. So I just decided to leave it as iron sights, which, you know, is just fine. Now we'll kind of overview on the KelTec Sub 2000. Now, the Sub 2000 is pretty much just a tube with a pistol grip on it for the most part. It does have a stock on it and such, but the charging handle is back here versus in the middle. I will say something about the Sub 2000 is it is a very stiff spring to pull this back. I find that, like, for example, my wife can easily shoot this one. I think she'd have a hard time pulling this back and actuating this. I've seen a few ladies have a hard time with this, so you almost need somebody with a little bit more strength to pull that back. We'll talk about the iron sights. The sights on the KelTec is kind of similar, exception for, I will say, I think the sights are a little bit more crude on the KelTec. However, I think one advantage that they do have is it does use an AR-15 front post, so you can actually change out the post, and right now we have a Blitzkrieg front sight post in there, which is really cool. Alright, so we're going to kind of discuss some other features here. One advantage I will say with the KelTec right out of the box is, you know, it's all overall a very light little carbine, and it has this really neat handguard that comes nearly to the end of the barrel, so you have Picatinny slots that you can easily attach just a light on. My brother has a VG on here, which is pretty cool. It actually kind of feels nice in hand when you mess with that. While my PC9, it just has a very short fore end on here. Now I will say you can get models that has like a full length M-lock rail all the way out to the end of the barrel. I didn't want that because it was just a lot of excess weight in my opinion, and for a 9mm carbine I just kind of wanted something a lot lighter and handier. But that is kind of nice on the KelTec because you can get the light out a lot farther than say on the Ruger. Right, so we're going to discuss the barrel length. The barrels are pretty much the same length. However, the whole like action receiver and everything like that. Well, part of the reason why the Ruger has such a longer receiver is the receiver is obviously separate than the stock, versus on the KelTec the receiver is kind of technically part of the stock. It's almost like an AR-15 with a whole buffer spring system. Now, something else to kind of take note on too is you can see the barrel profiles. The Ruger actually has a very heavy barrel that's fluted, which in my opinion I think is just a little overkill for a 9mm. The KelTec has a lot lighter profile barrel, which obviously helps it reduce weight quite a bit. Alright, so something else to take note on of the Ruger PC9 versus the KelTec Sub 2000. And right off the bat, I'm going to say a caveat here. I don't think either of these are a bad gun. I actually think they're both pretty neat, and I think they both kind of have advantages and disadvantages. One thing I will say about the Ruger PC9, and you will notice it when shooting it a lot, is that it obviously has less felt recoil, but it also, the trigger, now I'm just doing dry fire here, is significantly less with the Ruger PC9, and it just has a lot better reset. And that's just with the factory trigger. You could always get a really nice full Quartzen trigger or whatever for the Ruger PC9. However, with the Sub 2000, you're good. With the Sub 2000, the trigger, at least from my experience, was a lot spongier and it had a much longer reset. So that's something there to take note on as well. Alright, so next test we're going to try here is see which one of these you could actually get from the folded configuration or broke down configuration as with the Ruger PC9 to in action, and see which one could actually go faster and get into action. You ready, bro?
Yep.
Alright, 3, 2, 1, let's go. I was waiting on you. Yeah, the KelTec Sub 2000 obviously was a lot quicker. Alright, so another test we're going to try is, as you can see, both of these are up in their kind of folded up configuration right now. Now here we have a Kane, is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so.
Yeah, Kane or Kane backpack. Kind of average day pack size. And as you can see, the KelTec fits in there very easily, a lot more concealable and packed up than, say, the PC9, which I can fit it in there, but I kind of have to shift it in there pretty good to get the Ruger PC9 into the backpack. So that's something else to consider. The Ruger, overall, moral of the story, the Ruger is a bigger package. However, I think the Ruger can be a little bit more comfortable to shoot long term. Alright, so something else to take note on too is the sights with both the Ruger and the KelTec Sub 2000. The sight on the Ruger, all the adjustment is in the rear ghost ring sight, while the front post is just a fixed front post. However, on the KelTec Sub 2000, it's exact opposite. All the adjustment is in the front sight, just like an AR-15 almost, and then the rear sight is just fixed.
I would say it's almost more intuitive to do it here because you just adjust it height-wise like an AR-15, and then your windage is right here.
Yeah. The Ruger kind of is a little bit more finicky to adjust the sights on.
Yeah, a little bit more hands-on.
Alright, I'm going to shoot 5 shots out of my brother's KelTec Sub 2000 and give my impressions, and then he's going to shoot 5 shots out of my PC9 and give his impressions. Alright, so I will say, just like I've been saying, the KelTec does have a little bit more felt recoil, and you could actually kind of feel it more on your face. But overall, I do enjoy it. It's light and handy, that's for sure. It's handier than the PC9. Kenny, you want to give your impressions?
Yeah, let me. That locks back?
Yeah.
KelTec doesn't.
Oh yeah, that is something to take note on. The KelTec doesn't have a lock back. The Ruger does. I will say it's kind of magazine dependent because I've had some PMags that don't lock back on the Ruger, but most factory Glock mags will. Alright, so we have our 10-round magazines for both the PC9 and his Sub 2000. Let's wrap this up. Alright, so overall, that's kind of our overview of the Ruger PC9 versus the KelTec Sub 2000. I think at the end of the day, I think both of these are amazing little carbines. They're fun to play with. You know, I used to kind of poo-poo on the whole 9mm carbine thing to begin with, but I kind of thought of a new train of thought for it. The pistol is to fight your way to a rifle kind of concept, exception for the pistol is meant to get you to your backpack 9mm carbine to get you to your real rifle. How about that? What do you think?
Yeah, and this would be an awesome like travel gun or something too.
Well, that's exactly what I use mine for. My PC9, I fold it up and put it in my backpack or duffel bag whenever I'm traveling, you know. And it's kind of nice having something that takes the same magazines and ammo as my concealed carry pistol. So, you know, that's a really neat concept to have. Overall, these were really fun to shoot. I would suggest either one of these, honestly. I think the Ruger kind of has some things going for it. Especially, I think, optics. I think mounting optics is going to be a little easier on the Ruger. The trigger, I think, is a little better. I think just overall, if you want something that shoots more like a common rifle, the Ruger PC9 is the way to go. But if you want something a little more packable and lighter and just kind of cool in its own way, the KelTec Sub 2000 definitely is a winner too. With all that being said, please, first of all, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And be prepared, both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.